haven't won a premiership since 1954. 1954 seems impossible.
8 wins, 3 losses by the end of round 11. 4 wins out of that 6-week block. Continued on the really good form from the first opening 5 rounds, Stephen.
Yeah, there's some close games in that, but looking back, I think we had to find different ways to get the results we were after. We took some significant run and ball use out of our back half, and that probably challenged us in other ways. But the one thing that was constant through that block of games was our defensive work. I think we're really hard to get scored against, and I think our contests around the footy held us in really good stead, but we had to try and find different avenues to score.
A loss to the Kangaroos in round 6, Bob, but then you managed, I sort of get a sense that the Adelaide close win was significant.
It was. I mean, North Melbourne were able to really halt our ball movement, and that was a bit about what Kingy was saying, where our attacking flair was sort of curtailed a bit by other sides. But that win against Adelaide, we were able just to scratch it out against a good side. Wasn't pretty, but we were able just to win it when it mattered right at the end, and that was sort of, we were able to do that a lot during the year, able to just get over the line against those sides.
Kingy, you don't have Bob off half-back, you lose Jason Johannesson, you also lose Matty Suckling. Tell us about the machinations of how you managed to shuffle the decks in order to make sure you still had enough drive, but also cover the loss of 3 significant players.
Yeah, I think the beauty about Bevo is it encourages all our players to be dual position players, whether it's mid-forward, mid-back. So I think that flexibility that we'd worked on over summer and even the previous season held us in really good stead. So being able to swing Lockie Hunter back for patches, we tried different players. Liam Picken could go back there, Libra off half back for patches as well. So, and then just bringing some young players that really surprised us throughout the year. Bailey Williams played half back for a while and really, I think shocked us a little bit the way he just fitted straight in.
So the importance of being able to have the kids come in and play a role, I mean, that's significant in itself, but the importance of having a standalone VFL team would also help with regards to the education, so that with 39 players being used during the course of the year, you need your players coming through, that when they get limited opportunities, they're good to go.
Yeah, well, I mean, we got the VFL side a few years ago, and I think, and we've won 2 flags with our VFL side, but I think the fruits of that labour really were shown this year because of the amount of injuries and carnage that we had. So many guys going out of the side that we were able to slot guys straight into a role that they were very familiar with. The terminology was the same. They got it, and they were able to come in and play important roles. And Shane Biggs slot straight in, and Bailey Williams, a lot of guys that played in those running roles that we needed at the time.
For a long period of time, King, it was all about the experienced older campaigners for the Bulldogs, but we look at that 6-week block, Liberatore, Bontempelli, McRae, Stringer. The kids all played significantly important roles at various stages. It wasn't left up to a handful of players, it was evenly spread.
Yeah, and I think it was the real strength of ours as a year that we don't rely on one player. It's everyone takes their moment to do something at a critical moment and step up. And when you've got that balance and that we don't rely on the one particular player, I think we're really hard to play against. But also, I think just the players want the ball in their hands in big moments. We've got a group of young players that embrace pressure, embrace the challenges of big games, and they just step up and almost love being in those situations.
Bob, at the beginning of the year, now that the season's behind us, I know that during the season clubs and players and coaches are loath to sort of share publicly what their expectations are or what their goals are through the course of the year. But at the beginning of the year, was it realistic? Was the expectation that by the end of round 11 we want to be in the top 4, 8 and 3 wins?
It wasn't sort of put as clinically as that. It was, as all clubs are, you've got to earn the right to play in the finals and to play a big part in it. The whole footy club was bitterly disappointed by how the previous year finished up. We made the finals, had such a successful year in lots of ways, lost our first final to Adelaide, and we were really disappointed with how we performed on that particular night. So I think there was, without it being spoken about a lot, it was you have to earn the right to make the finals, but once we get there, we need to start winning finals. So I think that was kind of the unspoken expectation. Is that fair? Yeah, is that a fair enough comment, or
Definitely.
am I just on a tangent?
We're all on a journey just to explore how good we could be, and I think right until the end of the season we weren't sure what that meant, what it looked like, whether it was winning one final or ultimately winning the Premiership Cup. I think we just left it open to see where it could take us, and our young players and the playing group have just, I think, even as a coach at times you step back and go, my God, this group is unbelievable.
So do you think, in a sense, I mean, that's interesting to hear, because without having, you're on a journey, there's no expectation, but we're not putting a ceiling on it. Do you think in hindsight that actually took some pressure off the group?
I think so. Yeah, I certainly felt like that, and that was, and that started 2 years ago. I think it was the rest of the footy world has kind of turned its back on us. Well, who knows what we could be? Who knows how good we could be? We might be no good, but who knows? We actually might be a pretty handy football side. And I think the spirit that was planted a couple of years ago when Luke started, I think that really blossomed this year.
So was that noticeable when Luke came and assumed the senior coaching position, that was his mantra?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just everyone not only looking after yourself, but turn around and look at the bloke next to you and help him out, and have that mantra that everyone's here to help each other. And as Bob said, let's just see where we can go.
Well, there was a loss in that 6-week block to the GWS Giants at Spotless Stadium in Sydney. What was the takeaway? Because it didn't go according to plan that day, and obviously there were lessons learned there that would help you do something special later in the year.
Well, I think looking at the team later in the year, I think we had 8 or 9 players in that final that didn't play earlier in the year. So it was almost like a different half that team hadn't played GWS yet this year. So going in, I think even the walk away with the 25-point loss where we didn't really play that quality of a game, I think took a lot of confidence out of it, but also probably alerted us to how potent GWS can be as well, how dangerous they are.
I think it did speak a little bit to when we didn't have 22 real contributors on the day. We looked like a pretty middle of the run side, but I think what we see in the latter half of the year, in particular the last month in the finals, was we got 22 to show up every week, and when we had 22 who really contributed, then we were a force.
So we're at the end of round 11. You've had effectively 8 weeks post knee operation to sit back, involve, talk, educate, all of that sort of stuff, support your teammates. Were you surprised, given the significant number of injuries that your group had sustained during this period, were you surprised at their ability to find a way to work through this?
I don't know if I was surprised, because I held this group in pretty high regard. I'd seen how resilient they had been over the... But I must admit, I was full of admiration as each week passed, and with each injury we had, it was like more people outside the football club just sort of turned their attention elsewhere. And I think that created a special kind of energy within the group. You know what it's like inside footy clubs. You are always trying to create a gang mentality that it's you against the rest of the world. Sometimes you have to manufacture that. Well, this year, that just kind of happened organically, that everyone sort of, the Bulldogs will fall off this week. They'll fall away next week. And the more that was sort of, you don't talk about it, but you feel it, and I think that energised this group.
Were you surprised, King, as a coaching group, their ability to be resilient and overcome so many obstacles that could have at any stage derailed the season, but they refused to accept it?
Yeah, and I think credit to Bevo. He never once spoke about injuries to our playing group. All he did was have faith in the players that came in, and we knew that they'd play a role. And deep down, whether you actually believed it to the same extent whether Bailey Williams could play Bob Murphy's role, but those players that came in knew they had complete confidence of the coaching group and also their teammates, that, and as we've said with the VFL program, they knew exactly their roles they had to play. And credit goes to, I think, our senior players, Moz, Matty Boyd, and even the older boys like Ruffy that have been there a while, that they made them walk a bit taller as soon as they were in. Our group's so tight, they were just embraced and they knew exactly what was expected of them.
Through adversity, we see individuals that may not necessarily step forward and start to assume some responsibility and leadership. Who were some of the kids that you'd watched from close distance, in the absence of yourself, Johannesson, Suckling, etc., that really started to emerge as another potential next generation leader?
There was a lot. It was a really shared phenomenon, I guess, if you like, but no doubt Marcus was one of those who stepped forward. Caleb Daniel was someone who only been at the club a very short time. He grew exponentially, a very influential player on the field. But guys who'd been there for a little while, like Luke Dalhouse, Tom Liberatore, those boys who are the heart and soul of the locker room, I think they took on a greater responsibility on the field. But it's sort of unfair to single them out because it really was shared across the board.
Well, that was pretty much how the season played out through the course of the year. Everybody doing their bit. They're 8-3 at the end of round 11, the Western Bulldogs, ensconced in the top 4 and doing it nicely. Let's now have a look at rounds 12 to 16.
In front of 40,000 fans at Adelaide